In the quiet of a garden, where memories linger and silence speaks, two souls cross an unspoken line. Evelyn, a 67-year-old woman living in solitude after the death of her husband, never expected that a simple gesture from her 22-year-old step-nephew Evan would awaken something long buried inside her. What begins as a caring touch turns into a moment that neither of them can forget, a kiss filled with longing, vulnerability, and years of silent desire. This story explores the blurred lines between right and wrong, the ache of loneliness, and the rediscovery of intimacy no matter your age. If you've ever hidden your feelings, longed for connection, or questioned your own desires, this story will resonate with you in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to follow Evelyn and Evan's journey and more stories like this. Your thoughts and emotions matter. Share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. I was caring for the roses in my garden that morning, unsure of what life would bring. My hands were buried in the earth, checking the roots of the saplings I had just planted, before a sharp ache shot through my back. Everything was calm and normal like any other day. My step-nephew Evan just so happened to be there, so I had no idea what was going to happen. After my husband William passed away, my garden had always been a haven and a place of escape. It was the only thing that genuinely restored my spirit. But on this particular day, everything felt different. Although I was 67, people asked, "Evelyn, how do you manage to look so youthful at your age?" To be honest, there was no giant secret. I just took care of myself by eating well, exercising frequently, and making a commitment to never lose the young lady inside of me. However, I will admit that loneliness had become deeply ingrained in my being. Even while beauty might still draw attention, I couldn't get rid of the emptiness inside. I was positioning one of the saplings when I felt a strong, unexpected ache in my back, causing me to drop everything I was carrying. I briefly tried to breathe through the discomfort by closing my eyes, but it didn't help. Unexpectedly, I heard Evan's voice asking, "Evelyn, are you okay?" As the pain traveled from my shoulder down my back, immobilizing me. Even though he didn't appear to be aware of it himself, he possessed that innate appeal that drew everyone in. All that young vitality now appeared to be directed toward my back. I was able to pinpoint the area where the discomfort was the worst. Evan, my 22-year-old step-nephew, has the look of someone who would appear on a magazine cover. He is broad-shouldered and strong, his piercing eyes gazed at me with worry, and his golden hair glistened in the sunlight. "I can't move. Are you ready for this? This trip where boundaries are crossed, emotions are entangled, and admissions linger like silent cries is not just another narrative." If this appeals to you, please remember to support me by subscribing to my channel and turning on alerts. Evan crouched beside me and remarked. As his large hands touched my shoulders, I felt an uncontrollable chill go through me. "I'll massage you, that generally helps," he said, not having the courage to protest. The thing that astonished me the most was how his touch touched me, even though I was prepared to do anything to ease the pain. Evan touched my back with his hands and lightly pressed. I had to acknowledge that it had been years since I had felt this close. His fingers glided over my strained muscles with surprising gentleness despite their strength. I felt as though the lonely woman had just woken up inside of me. "Evan," I began to say, but I was unable to finish because the words were lodged in my throat. He continued to massage without saying anything either. I was startled and aroused in unexpected ways as his hands moved down my back, making me hyperaware of every touch. At that precise time, he kept moving his hands slowly and methodically down my back until he abruptly stopped and leaned in to give me a look. "This is terrible," he remarked, his voice grave and concerned. "We must handle this." After some hesitation, the pain persuaded me. "I'll take you inside near the fire where the warmth would help, and I'll get some ointment to rub on your back." He assisted me in getting to my feet when I nodded. "Be careful. Take it slow," he whispered, holding me up with his powerful hand. The room was filled with a warm golden glow from the roaring fire when we walked in, and the warmth immediately relieved the tension in my body, enveloping me like a blanket. His eyes were serious as he stated, "You need to stretch your back into a more comfortable position." But there was a pause. He replied, "I have some cream that will help loosen the muscles," and I lay down, allowing the fire's warmth to permeate my body. He whispered quietly, "Relax," and I released a breath I was not even aware I was holding. "You'll feel better swiftly." His touch on each hand did more than just ease my bodily pain. His hands moved down my spine, bringing something I thought I had long ago buried to the surface. My ideas were clearer and more tangled. Evan's touch was energizing, not only restorative. After a moment of hesitation, I accepted right away since the agony was too tremendous. Almost totally encircling me with his powerful hands, he added, "Take it slow, be careful." The room was filled with a bright orange glow from the fireplace flames as we entered the house, and the fire's crackling and warmth immediately made me feel at ease. Evan gestured for me to lie down and hastily laid a blanket on the floor. His eyes were stern, yet they flickered with something gentler. "You need to relax your back into a more comfortable position." He continued to assist the muscles in relaxing. I also packed some cream. I felt the warmth travel throughout my body as I lay down. I gasped as Evan touched my shoulder for the first time after he placed the cream in his hand, warmed the ointment between his hands. "Calm down," he murmured softly. "You'll feel better now." But I sensed that something was altering with every touch. In addition to providing me with physical satisfaction, his hands were reawakening feelings I had suppressed for years. His fingertips ran down my back, calming but confusing my thoughts. "No wonder your muscles are so tense," he observed, his voice containing a warmth that drew my attention. The touch was slow but sure, going deeper both physically and emotionally. "Evelyn, you take on too much: the chores, the garden. You must also consider yourself." I tried to explain to Evan that the garden is my therapy. Without it, I know. He softened a little when he intervened. "But you need more than just the garden. You need someone who will care about you." His remarks made me anxious, but they also warmed me even more than the fire. Though I may have understood what he meant, I would rather not have acknowledged it. He continued the massage by moving his hands down my back. The warmth of his touch released the tight regions, but its proximity also created a new type of knot within him. He was both reassured and frightened. Finally, with a shaking voice, I murmured, "Evan, I know," he claimed, his voice lower this time, "but you're really helping. Don't worry, everything will work out." I sensed, Evelyn, that his words were more than simply counsel, as if the fire's flames were becoming closer every second. Every muscle in my back relaxed as Evan's fingertips moved smoothly down it. A peculiar uneasiness started to grip me. His warmth gradually but resolutely grew. My thoughts started to wander at that point, and an internal conflict began. I ordered myself to remain composed. "Evelyn," but as his warm hands drew nearer to my shoulders, I lost self-control. My heart started to race. It was Evan's intimacy on the one hand, and the limits established over the years on the other. Abruptly, my inner voice sent forth a loud shout, "You shouldn't do this, Evelyn. He's your step-nephew." Warm light from the fire had filled the room, but eventually the heat became intolerable. My gaze was drawn to Evan as soon as I noticed him dabbing at his perspiration. His strong sun-kissed figure, which gleamed in the battle like a sculpture, was suddenly lifted off by pulling up the bottom of his shirt. "The fire's heat is excessive. It's been years since I felt this connected to someone," he stated. "There is too much heat from the fire." His voice sounded informal, but I was frozen by the intensity of his stare. His gaze then locked with mine. He continued, "Evelyn, you're getting really hot too." In a gentle yet forceful tone, "If you keep that clothing on, you'll feel worse. Allow me to assist you." My words got stuck in my throat. I thought of defending myself, but my skin and the room were now too hot. Evan crouched beside me and grabbed the hem of my shirt. As I slowly nodded, I shuddered as I felt his warm hands on my skin, yet it was more like a heat than a chilly feeling. After gently pulling my shirt up and wrapping it over my hair, he removed it and set it aside. The atmosphere between us became thicker at that point, and he looked at me for a brief period before swiftly averting his gaze. But Evelyn, I didn't need to see Evan's face to comprehend the turmoil those expressions created inside of me. As he said that, his voice was deeper and gentler than previously. "You feel better now?" "I think so." My voice broke as I spoke, but it was insufficient to hide the storm that was inside of me. I was encircled with Evan's warmth, not simply the heat. He said, "Come on," and held out his hand. "Let's sit on the couch. This place makes you uneasy." As soon as our fingers connected, I seized his hand. He studied me for a minute with his powerful arms and pulled me to my feet. I felt an energy I hadn't experienced in years. When we got to the sofa, my anxieties started to fade since Evan's protective attitude seemed so obvious and natural. He took a seat beside me right away, but he made sure there was enough room between us. However, there was still tension in the room. Not losing myself in his stare made it hard, if not impossible, to say what we didn't say. I struggled to control my inner turmoil, but one thing was obvious after we sat down in solitude. Tonight it was nearly difficult to ignore the weight of our emotions. The fire's crackling accelerated my heartbeat, which I could practically hear in my chest. I'm seated close to Evan. His presence, even his breath, had an effect on me. I felt uneasy and oddly calm at the same time since I was so near to him. We looked at one another. As I briefly turned my head, something, maybe curiosity, maybe something deeper, was in his eyes. It was hard to miss the look in his eyes in this closeness. Deep, passionate, but tender. At that moment, the world seemed to pause. Evan put his hand softly in mine, and I felt cold as his fingers contacted mine. He said nothing, yet the silence had much significance. For a moment, his gaze remained fixed on my lips, and then everything shifted. He inclined slightly toward me. The noises inside of me silenced because he was so near that his breath warmed my skin. At that moment, there was only Evan's gaze and his proximity to me. There was no more right or wrong. I closed my eyes and leaned slightly in toward him. When our lips met, it felt as though time had stopped. The moment our lips touched, time seemed to pause. The first touch was soft, gentle, and exploratory, but in a matter of seconds his warmth, breath, and lips felt more intense. Everything seemed detached from reality, and the loneliness, fear, and longing that had been building inside of me were somehow merging with him in that moment. The gesture wasn't just a kiss. It was the expression of years of bottled-up emotions, suppressed desires, and perhaps even a hidden bond. As the kiss deepened, his hands moved gently over my cheeks, and my hands instinctively gripped his shoulders, radiating warmth from my palms. At last, our bond felt stronger than ever, as we both pulled away at the same time, breathing unevenly even though I wasn't sure what to say. I knew that after the kiss, our relationship would never be the same. My heart pounded fiercely, threatening to burst from my chest, leaving me breathless. My thoughts fell silent, and I spoke the words, "Yes, I want you, I want you." Evan's face showed a moment of surprise, followed by a gradual grin that matched the warmth that enveloped him, and something inside of me broke. My voice was unsteady, but my sentiments were obvious. And the loneliness and concerns I'd held for years seemed to melt away in an instant. "I want you to, Evelyn," he replied in a forceful yet gentle manner. "I've tried to resist, but I've reached my limit. I want to be with you. I want you." Each of his words touched my heart as they swept through me like waves. Without hesitation, Evan stepped closer to me this time and softly cradled my face in his hands. The intensity of our sensations was indescribable as our lips connected once again. That was a turning point in my life because, in spite of all my worries, I would rather not stop anything. I hadn't stopped anything, and I had fully let my emotions run wild, leaving us both entangled and out of breath. With a little smile on his lips, Evan lay next to me. I glanced up at the ceiling and noticed our shirts and pants scattered around the floor. The night felt so surreal, almost like a dream. And he muttered, "Evelyn," in a deep, low voice. Evan turned to me, still wearing that seductive smile. His thumb briefly touched my lips and his palm touched my cheek. I turned to him and said, "Thank you, Evan," in an appreciative tone. "You're so tall, youthful, and attractive, and I haven't felt so alone in a long time. The present is a moment I wouldn't trade for anything. It's fantastic." Evan's lips curled upward, his signature attractive smile spreading over his face. I had no intention of concealing the sincerity and thankfulness in my gaze. "Evelyn, are you aware of your beauty? And I'm not just referring to your appearance," he continued. "Everything about being with you is different, including your warmth and genuineness. You improve my mood." I was unable to look away from his. I wanted to remember that night forever because everything about it, his words, his touch, was so genuine and potent. I told Evan straight out that I needed you and you were there. There is nothing more I could have wished for. With a little smile, Evan brushed his fingertips over the sheet's edge. "Evelyn, I'm going to be here a lot. I'll be there whenever you need me from now on. Just to see you. Just to give you those moments," he replied, his voice full of resolve and earnestness. I could feel a new chapter in my life beginning at that very moment. The loneliness and responsibilities of the past were gradually fading away. I felt so trusting and at peace when Evan was at my side. I drew in a big breath, closed my eyes, and stepped into his warmth. That evening was only the beginning of a new trip. and realizing that I was no longer alone were more valuable to me than anything else. I hope my narrative was enjoyable for you. I'm thrilled to share my experience with you, since it's been quite thrilling. If you'd like to hear more tales like this, you'll be the first to know when a new episode is published if you remember to subscribe and enable alerts. I also really appreciate your comments and likes. It is quite motivating to hear your thoughts and feelings. Thank you for encouraging me to write more. I'll see you in the next.